Navy SEAL asked her rank as a joke. Then every admiral in the war room saluted her. It started with a joke. A careless line tossed across the war room like someone flicking a match at a puddle, not realizing it was gasoline. He didn't know who he was talking to. He didn't know what she carried. He didn't know the day would end with every admiral in the room saluting her. "Hey, sweetheart. Rank, or you just bringing coffee?" The words hit the Coronado war room with a smirk that delivered them, sharp enough to cut, careless enough to sting. Lieutenant Commander Jace Torrens stood with his arms folded, his voice carrying that lazy confidence of a man too used to being obeyed. Around him, a cluster of operators snorted into their energy drinks, their laughter bouncing between steel walls and satellite map. Across the polished floor stood the woman he was talking to, Maeve Rylan. No insignia on her uniform. No visible rank. Just a quiet posture, hair tied back tight, jaw still, eyes fixed on a spot somewhere just past Jace's shoulder. She didn't look offended. She didn't look intimidated. She looked steady. Too steady. Jace took a step forward, boots thudding like punctuation marks. "You deaf? What's your rank?" Maeve finally blinked, slow, deliberate. "I don't answer questions delivered without courtesy, sir." A couple of SEALs shifted their stance. That tone wasn't timid. It wasn't defensive. It was the kind of calm that makes experienced men uneasy, like watching a wave pull back farther than it should. Something was wrong. Or maybe about to go very, very right. Jace closed the gap in 2 strides, reaching out and grabbing the front of Maeve's uniform. The fabric wrinkled under his fist. She didn't resist. Didn't lean away. Didn't flinch. Just let physics carry her half an inch forward, her body still as stone. "You answer when a superior officer speaks," Jace growled. Maeve breathed in slowly, the quiet rhythm of someone who had practiced stillness until it became a second language. 4 counts in. 4 held. 4 out. 4 empty. A pattern invisible to most, but unmistakable to anyone trained to read stress responses. Except she wasn't stressed. Not even close. "Zero rank nobody," Jace muttered, releasing her with a shove meant to be subtle humiliation. The kind of push men like him never think twice about. Maeve straightened her collar with 2 measured motions, eyes fixed slightly to the left of his face, not avoiding, analyzing. Her posture carried an unearned authority, the kind that doesn't come from rank stitched onto a sleeve. The kind carved by experience. Chief Ramirez, 22 years in uniform, watched her breathing with a tightening jaw. "That's not fear," he whispered to the operator beside him. "That's someone waiting." Jace shoved Maeve harder this time, palms planted in the center of her chest. The war room wall caught her spine with a sharp thud, a sound that snapped through the space like someone had struck concrete with a hammer. But she didn't gasp, didn't stagger, didn't even bring a hand up. She simply stood there, back to the wall, feet planted evenly, gaze steady as if she were observing weather instead of violence. "Defend yourself," Jace said, voice rising. "Or are you one of those sailors who freezes under pressure?" Maeve lifted her chin a fraction of an inch. "I know when to engage and when to document." Something flickered across Jace's face. Uncertainty, discomfort, maybe a glimmer of recognition, before ego drowned it out. He slapped her hard enough that the crack echoed across the operations board. A thin line of blood touched her lip. She wiped it with her thumb, slow and calm, then looked at the smear like she was memorizing it. Ramirez took an involuntary step forward before stopping himself. "She should be scared," he muttered under his breath. "Or angry. Something." But Maeve wasn't breaking. She was recording. Before Jace could deliver another word, the operations officer rushed in, tablet in hand, eyes frantic. "Brief push to 1300, he announced. "Admiral Kincaid's flight got delayed. Clear the room. Essential personnel only." "Does that include her?" Jace asked, pointing at Maeve with a scoff. The officer didn't even look up. "Observer roster is classified. You'll know when you need to know. Out." One by one, the SEALs filed toward the exit, gear clanking, their earlier bravado dissolving into uneasy glances at the woman still leaning casually against the wall. As Ramirez passed her, he kept his voice low. "You okay?" Maeve didn't turn her head. "Yes, Chief. That was out of line. You should report him." She nodded once. "I will handle it appropriately. Thank you." It was the perfect Navy answer, precise, sterile, revealing nothing. Ramirez felt a chill crawl down his spine. Jace called from the doorway. "Move it, Ramirez." The chief hesitated a fraction too long, then followed the others out, leaving Maeve alone in the war rooms humming quiet. For 30 seconds she didn't move. Didn't wipe the last trace of blood. Didn't seem hurt. Just breathed. Counting. Waiting. Something was coming. Night settled over Coronado like a slow exhale. Lights flicking on, helicopters training across open water, distant boots echoing on pavement. But Maeve Rylan didn't walk toward the barrack. She headed deeper into the restricted wing, past 3 checkpoints and a biometric door that only opened for 14 people in the entire Navy. Inside, the room was windowless, humming softly under fluorescent light. 8 feet by 12. Concrete walls. A single secured terminal. Maeve sat down, pulled a small encrypted device from inside her uniform, and inserted it into the port. Retinal scan. 16-character authentication code. Physical key. The system unlocked with a muted click. Classification level. Specter program. Red veil clearance required. Active operation. Specter 17B. Target. Lieutenant Commander Jace Torin. Suspected violation. Unauthorized transfer of Aegis missile defense vulnerabilities to foreign intelligence intermediaries. Estimated damage, catastrophic. Maeve scrolled through the annex. Bank activity, encrypted communications, access logs that didn't match his assigned duties. 11 months of dead ends. Too well connected. Too protected. Until Specter was activated, a program unnamed in any official document. A program that used personnel with no rank on their sleeves. An authority above everyone else's. Maeve exhaled. Tomorrow, the truth would come to the surface. Maeve didn't sleep that night. People assumed agents lived on adrenaline, on secrecy, on the thrill of catching traitors. But real work at her level was built on something quieter. Something heavier. Grief. 2 years earlier, she had been just another surface warfare officer stationed in Norfolk. Married. A daughter who loved drawing whales. A life built in gentle routines. Then came a systems breach traced through her husband's command. A data leak that spiraled fast, pulling innocent people into suspicion. Her husband stepped forward to shield a junior officer who panicked under interrogation. It should have been commendable. It became fatal. 3 days later, he was gone, collapsed under pressure, under accusations that weren't true. Maeve held their daughter through the funeral, trying not to drown with her. The Navy cleared him months later, but redemption after death feels like a cruel joke whispered too late. Specter found her not long after, a program that recruits the broken, the steady, the ones who learned to breathe in ruins. They gave her no rank, no insignia, just a mission. Prevent this from happening again. So when Jace Torin hit her, she wasn't just absorbing an insult. She was remembering a promise. By sunrise, Coronado buzzed with the nervous quiet that comes before a high-level briefing. Operators polished gear that didn't need polishing. Officers reviewed notes they'd memorized days ago. Everyone knew Admiral Kincaid didn't tolerate sloppiness or excuses. Jace Torin walked into the war room with his usual swagger, but there was a tightness around his eyes. Men who lose control in private spend mornings convincing themselves no one noticed. He scanned the room for Maeve, probably expecting her tucked away somewhere doing coffee run duties. But Maeve Rylan wasn't there. Not at first. The room filled quickly, commanders, analysts, intel liaisons. Ramirez kept glancing toward the entrance, jaw tightening every time Jace smirked like he owned the floor. At 12:58, 2 minutes before the briefing, the room went silent. Not because an admiral entered, but because she did. Maeve walked in flanked by two silent officers in plain uniforms. No insignia. No expression. They peeled off to stand near the back, leaving her alone at the center of a space she had no business commanding. Except she did. Something in her presence rearranged the room's gravity. Even Jace's smirk faltered. Something was happening. Something big. Admiral Kincaid entered with a brisk stride, silver hair neat, eyes sharp enough to cut through the tension. Everyone shot to attention. Everyone except Maeve, who remained standing calmly, hands clasped, gaze forward. Kincaid noticed her immediately. "Specter 17B," he said quietly. A murmur rippled through the room, soft, confused, uneasy. Jace glanced from the Admiral to Maeve, brows knitting. "Sir, what's she doing here?" Kincaid didn't even look at him. "You don't address Specter personnel without authorization." Jace barked a short laugh. "Specter? She's an admin who?" The Admiral turned, voice turning to steel. "Lieutenant Commander Torin. One more word and you will regret it." The room froze. Operators traded glances. Ramirez's heart thudded. Maeve stepped forward slightly, not a challenge but a signal. "Admiral, permission to begin." "Granted." A screen lit behind her. Access logs, encrypted message trails, financial anomalies. A web of betrayal that had taken nearly a year to untangle. "This," Maeve said softly, "is why I am here." Jace's face blanched. The operators leaned in, breath held. And for the first time, the war room understood. Maeve Rylan wasn't a nobody. She was the knife in the dark. And someone was about to bleed truth. Maeve clicked to the next slide, an encrypted chain linking Jace's personal device to a foreign intermediary. It hit the room like cold water. Some operators shifted their footing. Others just stared, stunned. This wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a grudge. It was data, undeniable and lethal. Jace shook his head, voice cracking. This is doctored. She's framing me." Maeve looked at him, really looked. Not with anger. With the kind of quiet sadness given only to people who have seen someone throw their whole life away. "You compromised missile defense vulnerabilities," she said. "For money. And ego. And because you thought you were untouchable." Jace lunged forward. "You set me up." Two operators intercepted him instantly, pinning his arms. He thrashed, the mask finally slipping. The facade of confidence cracked into panic, into rage, into something feral. Ramirez swallowed hard. He had seen guilty men before, but never one unraveling because he realized who he had actually messed with. Maeve didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't raise her voice. "Specter doesn't set people up," she murmured. "We follow trails others refuse to see." The room shifted around her, fear settling into respect. And Jace finally understood he was done. Admiral Kincaid moved beside Maeve, his expression solemn. "Maeve Rylan," he said loud enough for the entire room to hear, "you have performed your duty with precision, integrity, and extraordinary restraint." A silence deeper than shock filled the space. Then, something no one expected. Every admiral present stood and saluted her. Not because she outranked them. Not because the program demanded it, but because some truths carry weight beyond hierarchy. Because some battles are fought in shadows so others can sleep in peace. Because the strength it takes to endure humiliation while protecting an investigation is greater than the strength it takes to break a man in public. Maeve didn't return the salute. Specter personnel weren't allowed to. Their recognition existed in whispers, not gestures. But her eyes softened. Just barely. The first crack in her armor since she'd walked onto that base. Jace watched the scene from where the operators held him, his face draining of color. He had laid hands on someone the entire chain of command trusted more than themselves. And now, in front of everyone, the truth didn't just rise, it towered. Tomorrow, headlines would talk about security breaches. But this room would remember something else. The day the quietest person stood tallest. Jace Torin was escorted out of the war room by military police, his shouts echoing down the hallway until distance swallowed them. The doors closed, and what remained was a heavy stillness, the kind that follows lightning after it hits exactly where it was meant to. Maeve stood alone near the center of the room, the glow from the tactical screens washing her features in soft blue. The bruising along her jaw was faint now, a small reminder of the morning, but no one dared mention it. They watched her the way people watch someone pulling themselves from fire without a burn. Ramirez approached slowly, like someone stepping into a sacred space. "Ma'am, I didn't know." Maeve nodded once, a gesture both grateful and distant. "You weren't meant to." "That hit, the shove, all of it. It had to happen," she said quietly. "If I reacted, he'd know. If I reported early, he'd shut down, hide the trail. Sometimes doing the right thing means swallowing the part of you that wants justice now." Ramirez looked at her with something like awe. "That's a heavy thing to carry." She exhaled softly. "Most important things are." The debrief took place in a small secure room lit by a single overhead lamp. Admiral Kincaid sat at the head of the table. The other admirals flanked him. Maeve sat opposite them, posture straight, fingers interlaced calmly. "You conducted yourself with exceptional discipline," Kincaid said, his tone devoid of formality. It sounded personal. Maeve kept her gaze steady. "Thank you, sir." An admiral with kind eyes leaned forward. "You maintained deep cover for nearly a year. There were several opportunities to protect yourself. You didn't take them. That's the job." "No," Kincaid replied softly. "That's who you are." For the first time, Maeve's focus flickered. Not breaking, but softening, just enough that grief could breathe through the cracks. Kincaid noticed. "You carry your husband's honor with you," he said gently. "We failed him. And we won't fail you." Maeve looked down at her hands. Steady, controlled, the hands of a woman built from quiet devastation and rebuilt purpose. "I just didn't want another family to lose someone because a person in power thought accountability didn't apply to them," she murmured. The admirals exchanged a glance unknowable to anyone without decades of service. "Maeve," Kincaid said, "you didn't just protect this command. You restored its moral spine." When the debrief ended, Maeve walked out into the courtyard behind the operations building. Sunset painted the sky in muted golds and deep purples. The air smelled faintly of the ocean, salt, steel, and memory. She sat on a bench tucked beside a small memorial stone engraved with names lost in service. One of them was her husband's. Maeve touched the etching with her fingertips, tracing the letters as if reading them in braille. Her shoulders finally loosened. The stillness she'd held so tightly all day unwound like a rope released from tension. "You'd tell me I did the right thing," she whispered. "And then you'd laugh, because you always said I had better self-control than you." A tear slipped down her cheek, just one. The kind that escapes after being held back too long. A release, not a collapse. "I'm raising her well," Maeve added softly, imagining her daughter's bright eyes, the drawings taped over their fridge at home. "She misses you." "I do too." For a long moment, Maeve let silence settle around her, letting grief breathe, letting love be heavier than duty. Then she wiped her cheek, inhaled slowly, and stood, steadier than before. As Maeve crossed the base toward the exit, she noticed operators drifting to the side, creating a path without being told. Their eyes followed her, not with fear, not with pity, but with respect carved from understanding. Ramirez jogged to catch up. "Ma'am," he said, slightly breathless, "I know you don't collect thanks, but you protected all of us today." Maeve shook her head. "I protected the mission." "No," he insisted. "You protected the idea that this uniform means something." She paused. That struck deeper than she expected. Another operator joined them, the youngest one, barely 25. He swallowed hard before speaking. "If you ever need anything, any of us, we've got you." Maeve looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes. "The best way you can help," she said gently, is to treat every quiet person like they might be carrying something unseen. Like you? He asked. She offered a faint smile, small, honest. Like anyone. As she continued walking, Maeve felt the weight of the day settle into something else. Not victory, not relief. Validation. A rare, quiet kind. Some wars are fought so silently no one knows they happened. Today wasn't one of those days. Later that night, Maeve returned to her small on-base quarters. The lamp on her daughter's nightstand glowed softly, casting shapes on the wall, whales, stars, waves drawn in crayon and taped lovingly by small hands. Maeve knelt beside the sleeping child, brushing a loose curl from her forehead. Her daughter breathed deeply, innocence undisturbed by the storms her mother walked through. "You deserve a world safer than the one your father died in," Maeve whispered. "And I'm trying. I promise I'm trying." She sat there for a long time, letting the quiet soothe the raw edges inside her. The day had been brutal, exposing betrayal, enduring humiliation, holding steel in her spine when every instinct screamed to strike back. But she did it because some battles weren't about pride. They were about people who'd never know her name, people who'd never thank her, people she'd never meet. Maeve stood finally, turning off the lamp. As darkness settled, she felt the grief again, but softer now, like something she could hold without breaking. Her husband's photo on the dresser caught the glimmer of moonlight. She touched it gently. "For both of us," she murmured. And meant it. Some heroes don't wear medals. Some don't speak loudly. Some just carry the weight no one else sees, and stand steady when the world tilts. If Maeve's story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon to support more stories of quiet, extraordinary courage.